Hi, I'm Jasmine, and welcome to Pushing Over the Box. I'm a 13-year-old ballerina who's curious about what it really takes to dance at the highest level. Here, I ask inspiring dancers about their routines, their mindsets, and how they break boundaries. Let's go! Welcome back to another episode of Pushing Over the Box. Today's guest is Kyle Froman, former dancer at New York City Ballet, current photographer. Kyle is the author of In the Wings, a look behind the scenes of New York City Ballet, and an acclaimed photographer for magazines, shows, and so much more. I hope you're as excited as I am. Hi, Kyle. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Jasmine, for having me. It's an honor.
So, if you're ready, I'll get right into the questions. When did you first start dancing, and what did your early training look like?
Let's see. To answer that question, I actually have to go back a little farther. Actually, 100 years. In 1925, my grandmother was one of the original Rockettes when they were still in Missouri and known as the Missouri Rockets. It was this group of 16 dancers that toured around, and then it was before they came to New York. So she was one of those dancers, so that's when the dance element came into my family, I think. And so when she had my mother danced as a child, and when she was a teenager, she started performing as a dancer in summer stock theater. They were in St. Louis, Missouri at the time, and so the big theater it's known as the Muni. It's the St. Louis Municipal Opera, and that's where she met my father, who was a summer stock singer. And they married. They got engaged that summer and got married soon after and started a family. So my sister was the firstborn. This was back in the 50s. And I come from a family of 6 kids. So my sister's the firstborn, and my twin brother and I are the last of the 6 kids. So my sister danced. My sister also took class when she was young. And when she was 16, she started teaching out of our garage, of our house. This was before I was even born. But she started a studio then when she was 16. So when Kurt and I were born, there was always the studio. Then it was known as Froman Dance Studio. And Kurt and I would always go there and watched, and we seemed interested. Every year we would go to the recital, and my mom wouldn't really give us any warning. She would just push us out on stage and tell us to follow the girls. She'd like dress us up in the costumes, and we hadn't had any classes or anything. So it was kind of just this get out there and smile and just watch everybody else. But we liked it a lot. I mean, there was, some panic that kind of went along with that. But my father didn't want us to dance. We were about 5 or 6 then. But around that time, my parents got divorced. And so when they were going through the divorce, when we were 7 years old, my mom was looking for something for us to do. And she thought, would you want to take tap? Because, my sister's dance studio was right there. And Kurt, my brother, and I thought, sure, like it seemed like fun. We were interested in that more than like football or anything like that. We loved ice skating before, and we loved gymnastics. So, and we were pretty flexible and kind of coordinated. And so once we started that, we were completely smitten almost immediately. And we loved like the studio environment. We loved kind of cocooning ourselves there. And my sister was our teacher. And so there was kind of this familiarity. And we were good at it. We had, rhythm. We were very focused. And so we just fell in love. And so after that summer, we started taking jazz. And a few years later, we took ballet, just really at my sister's insistence, because she just really stressed, like, you guys need to like work on your feet. You need to understand technique, really. And all dance styles are kind of based on ballet technique. And so Kurt and I started taking when we were 9, like maybe once a week for 45 minutes. And we really didn't like it. But when we were, I'd say about a year or two later, we were 11, there was this movie called 6 Weeks that was always on cable in the early 80s. And a big element of this movie was the Nutcracker. And it seemed really exciting to us. And also, we would always watch Baryshnikov and Kelsey Kirkland on Channel 13 every year. So we asked our mom, can we go see this? And she said, well, you're dancers. Like, why don't you audition for it? And we thought, okay, it was scary because we would have to change schools and go to like a ballet school, which was, apart from my sister in this new environment. And we would have to wear tights and all these things. So it was kind of a big jump for us to do that. And of course, we were 11 and boys in Texas. And so there was kind of like this, is this okay? Like, are we going to do this? And we did it. We got scholarships but I'd say we were there for a couple of years, and it wasn't that strict of a school. It was called Southwest Ballet Center. And it wasn't a professional company or anything like that. It was more students. And I don't remember like a whole lot of corrections at the time. It was more just about like, it was a good school, but it was kind of like you learned just by doing. You got better just by doing the combinations. And so Kurt and I liked it a lot. And a couple of years later, we decided to change schools again. And this time we went to Fort Worth Ballet. And Fort Worth Ballet at the time was run by Paul Mejia, Roman Mejia's father.
Yeah.
And Paul was married to Suzanne Farrell at the time. And so we knew that name because she was in the small part of this movie, The Turning Point, and doing Tchaikovsky Pas de Deux, and it was it left a big impression on us, like who she was. And so that was super scary. My mom was like, you should audition. And I was like, I didn't say I'm afraid, but I was just like, maybe it would be easier if like we just stopped dancing. We were in middle school at the time, and my mom was like, no, like you're too good to stop. Just try. And I was like, okay. And that really changed my life because we auditioned for the school, and it was the first time we encountered balancing technique, and it just, ballet just completely changed before me. Like, they were so bendy and moved a lot, and there was such an articulation in their feet and in their legs. And most of the dancers, there was a professional company attached that was 25 dancers, I would say, and most of them were from School of American Ballet, so they were all really well trained. And Suzanne would come down every couple of months to stage rep for the company, and Kurt and I would sit in and watch, and we were just like mesmerized watching her teach. And we just really got an education. Those few months that spring when we started at the school, the company was doing a series of all balancing programs. So we saw Agon, we saw Raimonda variations, we saw Divertimento 15. So we saw this variety of the balancing rep, and we just like completely fell in love. We became obsessed. We were 14 years old, and it wasn't so easy to educate yourself at that age. There wasn't YouTube or anything like that where you could easily find videos. So Kurt and I would get tapes of the Dance in America tapings that New York City Ballet did in the 70s, and of like Four Temperaments and Allegro Brillante and all these cool ballets. And so we became obsessed with the history of New York City Ballet, as well as balancing and who all the dancers were. And when we were 15, we started coming up to the School of American Ballet for the summer courses.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that having a twin brother helped you because you were able to push each other, or was there ever some competitive feelings between you?
That's a good question. We were, identical twins, and there weren't a lot of other boys around us. So we kind of naturally just kind of kept an eye on each other and sort of compared ourselves. And, it's not like we would try to one up each other. We both really loved to work, and we were both like into it. And we were both kind of equally talented. But when I'd say it kind of changed when we both joined New York City Ballet because, in one sense, it was great because we were really good opposites, and because we moved basically exactly alike. We had the same style. Our bodies looked the same. Our faces looked similar, and so we were good at match. And so sometimes they would give us featured roles, like the bartenders in Slaughter on 10th Avenue, or we did the jockey dance in Bourneville Divertissement. And so we would get these featured roles, but at the same time, we knew that the company couldn't tell us apart. They would always call us the wrong names. And which, I feel like I'm skipping forward a little bit talking about the company, but that was it bothered both of us a lot after a few years because the job was so hard and you're trying to prove yourself, every day, every performance, and then they would call you the wrong name. And at the same time, our friends were kind of progressing and getting to learn different roles and we weren't being called. And so we kind of turned on each other a little bit. It was like, what are you doing out there? Are you dancing well? We knew it wasn't that. It was ultimately like laziness from New York City Ballet that they didn't see us like individually really. And then about that time was when we split. Kurt left the company and went to dance on Broadway, and I stayed in the company. So I feel like I skipped forward about 10 or 15 years. But it was both a good and a bad thing. I can't imagine going through that process alone. It was always nice to have a twin brother by my side moving up to New York and having these new experiences. We were very codependent at that time, like our security blankets, really. And but I love being a twin, and I can appreciate it all now. But it was difficult in certain ways.
Mm-hmm. And did you stay in-person school throughout all your training, or what did that look like for you?
Kurt and I started going to magnet schools when we were in middle school. They weren't arts magnet schools. They were more like science and engineering. So we were able to place out of certain classes, taking a test. And so we got to skip ahead a year or two. And when we were in middle school, we started getting high school credits. I was taking like algebra in 7th grade and geometry in 8th. And so by the time we were in high school, we actually got to skip a whole grade. We got to skip our junior year and graduate early. So education was very important to us through that whole time. And even though SAB would always ask us to stay after the summer courses, it wasn't, my parents wouldn't even consider it really. And school was important. And so we graduated right when we turned 17. And so by the time we moved up to New York full time after getting this scholarship, we were both awarded the first Rudolph Nureyev scholarship at SAB, which paid for everything. So by the time we were 18 and got this scholarship and moved up, we were totally done with school. And so it allowed us to just like concentrate completely on ballet, and we were kind of done with those obligations.
Since your parents had a background in performing arts, were they always very supportive that ballet could be a career, or did they view it more as like a hobby?
I think my dad was not supportive. Later on when we were, progressing like 14, 15 and going to SAB and stuff, it's not like he didn't allow it, but he didn't make it easy on us really. And my mom was always incredibly encouraging. She knew that we were talented. She told us we were special and that we had something. And she was all for anything that we wanted to do. Um, and but I wasn't even sure that's what I wanted to do until a certain point. I think when I was about 14 and had gone to Fort Worth Ballet and really fallen in love with balanchine, there was a performance that Kurt and I did at some summer program that was nothing. It was almost like a talent show. It wasn't really a ballet summer program. We were there with our sister, and but we performed this like duet, this ballet duet that we had choreographed, and it was the first time we finished, and it was one of those kind of surreal experiences where everyone jumped to their feet immediately. And it was like, I started crying. I mean, I got off stage, but it was like incredibly overwhelming to me. I felt this like, oh, like this rush, like of the performance and their reaction. And it was so fun and I loved it. And that's when I decided this is what I want to do. And I had Fort Worth Ballet, the company, to kind of look up to, and I admired those dancers so much. I remember we would come and take class at the school before we go. And I remember going in and watching the company and being so jealous of them that they got to dance all day. And I thought, like, wow, like, wouldn't that be wonderful if that's all I had to do was dance and get better? And I think one of my dad's reservations about it was he said we were too smart to be dancers at the time, and thought that was kind of a shame that we weren't going to go to college. And really what he wanted us to do was be engineers, like, because he was an engineer. So it was more like a vanity thing, I think, on his part. But that's when I decided, I think, when I was about 14.
Mm-hmm. And so you said you started with tap and jazz. Do you think that your background in other forms of dance helped your ballet or hindered it?
Oh, definitely helped, especially with balanchine. And that's was one of the revelations when I first saw that rep and watching Fort Worth Ballet move, was there was such jazziness to everything. And the choreography was so musical. And Kurt and I had such, with tap, you start with you learn rhythm right away. And there's such a musicality to balanchine that there was like, it fit perfectly with us. And we saw that it wasn't like a stuffy art form necessarily, like, then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to turn from this position. And it wasn't like that. It was streamlined, and there was this like energy and speed to everything. And I forgot your question. Oh, about learning other art forms. And that definitely helped. I mean, there's certain balanchine ballets that do have tap steps. The Bartenders in Slaughter on 10th Avenue is a little tap dance. And there's definitely a jazzy quality to a lot of balanchine ballets. So it helped.
Mm-hmm. What was your transition into the company like?
Let's see. After Kurt and I got the array of scholarships and moved up when we were 18, we were just, well, first of all, the School of American Ballet's winter term is much different than the summer courses. We had been to 3 different summer courses before then, and but we knew that the winter course was like the real deal. It's like you have more classes a day. It's much more strict as far as dress code and things like that. And it's just more structured, and the dancers are better. The competition is much better. So when we came up, we knew that our class was really talented. But I'd say that there were about 5 or 6 of us men who, we were all good. Then they had, they didn't just have intermediate and advanced. They also had a group called Special Men's, where you would have an early morning class where it was a smaller group. I'd say there were about 10 of us or something. So we got to work with Stanley Williams, who taught at SAB a lot more. And so we were all progressing that year, but you never really know. We knew that New York City Ballet there was going to be a turnover in the company. We heard that a bunch of dancers were leaving at the time. This was 1995. We knew some dancers were leaving, that Peter Martins was kind of cleaning house a little bit, and that they needed to replenish the ranks. He was looking for, especially men at the time. So, but you never know. And like, we were worried, like, what if he chooses one of us over another? What if we're both not taken in the company? How devastating would that be? And a few months later, we were starting to rehearse workshop. It was in March. We were rehearsing workshop, and Kurt had a lead in Napoli, and I had a lead in Four Temperaments. And after class, we noticed on the bulletin board there was this memo that was kind of pinned up there that said, Kyle, Kurt, Jason, and Henry, please see Miss Gleboff. Miss Gleboff was the director of the school at the time. And we were like, what's this about? And so we all went into her office, and we found out then, like, we've been chosen as apprentices with the company. They wanted to tell us right away. They said, like, you're not going to start until the next fall. So we had like 6 months before we were going to start. They said, so now you just have to concentrate on workshop. And so it was wonderful. And then when I, started doing that job, it was wild to me, because I always had, I want to be a dancer in the New York City Ballet. That was my goal. And so to achieve that goal when you're 18 years old, it was just heaven for me. But at the same time, it's like, all right, well, what's my next goal? Like, what do I do now? Like, I wasn't used to not having something that I was reaching for. So it was sort of an adjustment when you get into the company. When we moved up and we're at SAB for the winter term, we saw all these New York City Ballet dancers like taking class at the school, and then we would go across the plaza and watch them perform every night at New York State Theater. That's what it was called then. I was just kind of blown away by all of them. They were all really talented and strong, but I was also impressed by they were so comfortable on stage. There was kind of a control that they maintained, and there wasn't anxiety that was overtaking them. You could tell, and that's kind of what happens with performing that regularly. You kind of get your sea legs in a way. It becomes just a daily thing to be out in front of an audience, and so that was really special.
Yeah. Would you say that you were like nervous before going on stage, or were you always very calm?
Oh, no, I'm a very nervous person. I'm always nervous before I go on stage, or was nervous when I went on stage. And now I'm nervous before photo shoots. I'm nervous before anything. And that's always just kind of been part of my DNA, was to be anxious. And so, yeah, even performing 3 ballets a night at New York City Ballet, before the curtain would go up, I couldn't imagine that I could do what I was about to do. I swore that I wasn't going to be able to move, or I would fall, or like it was all just going to be a disaster. But every time the curtain would go up, it would all just kind of melt away, and I was able to like really enjoy being out there. But it's hard. It's very tough. It's kind of part of the job is to not have that stage fright, or if you have it, to be able to kind of overcome it every time. But I think it became part of my process, at least like that's what I assume, because I continue to be nervous. It's my way of kind of revving myself up. It's hard for me to know the difference between being excited and being nervous. They're all the same thing to me. So it's just kind of this fear, energy that I think that I just kind of store up before I have to do anything, and then once it starts, I let it go, and I'm secure in myself.
After you were accepted into the company or told that you were going to be an apprentice, Since you still had a workshop, were you very nervous, or did you feel more calm because you already knew that you had a spot for you in the company?
Um, I was still very nervous. I think they told us in March so that we could relax about the whole thing and just have fun. But that's not really how it went for me. It was my first time performing in New York, and if anything, it put more pressure on me to really wow everybody, especially Peter Martins, the director. I felt like it was my opportunity to really put my stamp, you know, I have value. Um, I wanted him to like me. And there were a lot of things that were kind of going on with that stress. My mother was in the audience, and, but also the girls. I wasn't used to rehearsing for like 3 months for one part. And so you just become everyone becomes a perfectionist, and you have so much time that it's like, it builds it up so much. Instead of, you can't just go out there and think, okay, I'm just performing, this is nothing. It's like it becomes this like bar that you set, or at least I set. And so also on the program was Balanchine's La Source, which has like a lot of ladies in the corps de ballet, and everyone just tracked the stage with rosin. There was rosin all over the stage, and for some reason, I was the lead in Sanguinic in Four Temperaments. For some reason, I decided to wear leather ballet shoes instead of canvas. I had always worn canvas, but I was like, oh, I'm going to wear leather tonight. And there comes a part in the Sanguinic Boy has like a little solo that he does, and that ends with kind of a swivel to the knee. And I got one turn around and completely got stuck from the leather shoes and the rosin on stage, where I was like, oh my God. And so I kind of like fell forward. Instead of just doing this little swivel to the knee, it was like I kind of fell forward, and I just felt awful. I was so angry at myself, that happened, and I felt like Peter saw that in me and wasn't able to forget that, or maybe I wasn't able to forget it. I just I was angry at myself for doing that, for putting so much pressure on myself that I kind of messed up. So it took a couple of years of being in New York City Ballet to be able to feel calm on stage and to trust myself. But that took a lot of, kind of growing and maturing and learning what it's all about. It's not to say that my perfectionism went away. It continued to kind of eat me up. But no, that performance was never, it wasn't great. And I wanted it to be great. And I always wanted another shot at it. And many times thought, oh, if only I hadn't fallen, maybe something kind of would have gone differently. But I did fall, and that's and it wasn't that bad. It's like,
Yeah.
people fall all the time, but
Mhm.
it made me really angry at myself, to tell you the truth.
Mhm. How do you say that you dealt with mess ups on stage then and also later in your career?
Well, then I obviously I never forgave myself for that, which is silly. Um, but I also know that it's good to fall. It's good to, try things. And that's part of live theater. It's like, it's always a mixed bag. It's not going to be perfect, whatever that is. You're always going to feel like, oh, that part could have maybe been better, but that part was great. But there is, sometimes you just fall. Sometimes you slip. Sometimes you kick your leg really high and your bottom leg slips out from underneath you. Um, uh, I guess I didn't fall more than any other dancer. I fell maybe like 3 or 4 times in 14 years that I danced there, which isn't that much, but it caused a lot of nerves. and embarrassment, I guess, because, sometimes you're doing a solo and you fall and it's just like you feel stupid. And because the illusion is broken. You're trying to like portray this perfect version of yourself out there. And you have this kind of persona. And if you kind of fall, it kind of breaks it. It breaks your concentration and it breaks the spell that you're kind of weaving for the audience too. But that's the magic of live theater.
Yeah. Have you ever gotten injured when you were in the company? And if so, how did you deal with that?
The first injury I had was I had been in the company for 3 years, and I was doing a performance of West Side Story, Jerome Robbins' West Side Story suite at City Ballet, and people were always getting injured in that ballet because there's a lot of fighting, stage fighting, and it has to look real, and there's lots of like throwing people around. But I didn't get injured doing that. I was doing Cool after the dance at the gym, which is this like really powerful number, and it ends at the very end. Well, towards the end, there's a knee spin where you have to do like 1.5 and finish. I had gotten, no, it seems like I fall in turns, but I had gotten like, I was doing my knee spin and I had gotten like one around and I just fell forward onto the stage. I was on my knees, but I ended up jamming my thumb into the stage and popping a ligament in my thumb. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, what just happened? And, it's all snapping. And so I just had to switch hands and just snap with the other hand. But I woke up the next morning. I was like, what happened? Did I break my thumb? And so I went to all these doctors. They told me about it. And that was the first time I was out. And I think I was out for maybe 2 months. And I felt silly because it was my thumb. It seemed like, oh, it's not my legs or feet or anything like that or my back. It's like my stupid thumb. So I had to wear this custom-made sort of strap-on cast for a while and then a smaller one. And it took me, I think, until, well, I guess I was back on stage in about a month because I remember dancing in Saratoga. And that injury happened at the end of May. So that was the first time I got injured. And then every other injury I had, I never had anything major. Things just happen. You're dancing so much and your muscles get so tight and you're just so fatigued from rehearsing all day and then performing every night. And it just becomes this like marathon of a schedule. And things, you can injure yourself like that, like completely randomly where you come out of a jump and hurt yourself, or things can just kind of get aggravated and then get worse and worse and worse. And I think it was more the latter, where it was like I would get tears. Like I tore my labrum in one of my hips, and then I tore my other labrum, and then I tore one in my labrum in my shoulder. So but nothing kept me out for very long. And I'm happy to say, like, my body is totally fine now. I didn't get crippled from my years as a dancer, and I can still run, I can lift weights, I can do all those things. And so none of my injuries were that bad, thank God.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any pre-show rituals?
Yeah, probably. I guess, well, I would always get ready really early. I'd find out when a certain ballet would start that I was in, and then rolled the clock back 2 hours, and that's when I would start. So no matter what it was, it could be like, one of the boys in Serenade where you don't do anything until the very end, where you just come in and kind of partner people and that's it. But I would do, I put my makeup on, I do a full bar, I would be completely sweaty. Like I just couldn't imagine getting out there without feeling like 100% really. And, so yeah, I would take 45 minutes to do my makeup, and then I would fix my hair, and then I'd go down and warm up, and then I'd put my costume on. And so it was like, it's very regimented, especially when you do it every day. You know what works for you, um, what you can eat or not eat, or just how to maintain your energy throughout
Mhm.
the day.
When did you first discover photography?
Let's see. I first discovered photography in 2005, 20 years ago. I had been in the company, I guess, about 10 years, and my twin brother had already left the company. And I had been dancing a good amount. I really enjoyed dancing in the company by myself without Kurt there. Um, can we pause this just one sec?
Yeah, yeah,
We
of
can
course.
probably start this over.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, don't worry.
So, when did I discover photography? I discovered photography in 2005. We were in the middle of Nutcracker season, and I wasn't dancing a lot. I maybe was doing Soldier and Party Scene, or maybe Drosselmeyer by then, but I wasn't rehearsing a lot. Once you've been in the company a while, Nutcracker can kind of be boring because you're not rehearsing a lot, and you know you have your few performances a week, and that's it. And I think I was feeling kind of creatively starved at that point in the company. I felt like I wasn't really being used or learning things or anything like that. And suddenly I just kind of started seeing pictures around me. I remember being at bar in company class, and I don't know, we were ending plies in a susu or something. And I remember looking through everyone's arms in front of me, kind of lined up. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool perspective. I wish I had a camera. And, and then just going throughout my day, I'd go to the physical therapy room, and I thought, oh, that's kind of a interesting shot, or people getting ready before the show, or even just perspectives from the wings of performances. Like sometimes it's a really interesting angle. And so this was around the time that digital cameras became all the rage, but still before like cell phones or anything like that, smartphones. And so I ended up getting a camera from Amazon, and just I kept it in my bag, my dance bag, and I would just pull it out whenever I saw something. And I ended up sort of just making a project out of kind of capturing my life as a New York City Ballet dancer. I didn't know what it would be for. I just had it as a project, something that I enjoyed doing and getting better at. Um, and and after a couple of months, I realized that there was probably a book in it. And I thought, oh, this is going to be such a headache. I've told like the stage manager that these photos are just like for my personal use. I knew that all the choreography is copyrighted, and there are all these rules and unions that you kind of had to go through. And so I got a literary agent, and we got a contract. I signed a contract to publish a book with John Wiley and Sons. And I remember thinking, like, this isn't going to happen. I'm going to get in trouble for signing this contract and not be able to deliver this book because I won't be able to get the rights. But that's not what happened. Everyone was very encouraging. The company was encouraging. All the dancers signed off. All the unions signed off. And that was really exciting for me, because it was, in one sense, I felt a little silly because I knew I had only been photographing for 2 years or something, and now I was putting out this book. And I hoped that I wouldn't regret any weakness in some of the photos later when I knew that I would be better. But, you can only do as well as you can at a certain time. But when that book came out, I felt really proud. And I suddenly felt like, oh, and especially in the next year or two, when I realized what else I could do with photography and where else it could be. I could pose people and not just do documentary photography. It really became a new passion for me, because it allowed me to see these sites that I had been seeing in a new way. and to kind of translate them for an everyday audience. I knew I had really cool access, but it allowed me to see what was remarkable about my life. Also, I had always thought, like, I'm a ballet dancer, that's my passion, this is my life, it's my identity. I didn't imagine where that would go after that. And to find something that kind of emerged out of me naturally and was a way out of the company, and um, was really, I was, oh my gosh, I'm really sorry.
No, don't worry.
It's
Don't worry.
sorry. Oh, sorry. You can edit this, right?
Yeah, it's really easy to take it out.
Okay. So yeah, I was really happy that I saw this doorway sort of present itself where I was like, oh, I could do this when I'm done. It's not going to be reliant on my body. It's not going to be reliant on my age, and it's something that I could possibly do for the rest of my life. And that was like a really big relief. And also I felt like, oh, there's other parts of me that I can explore too. It's not just like this one and done talent that I had, like that there's life after being a dancer, and that it can be as fulfilling. And in some ways, like, at this point, like I'm about to celebrate 17 years since my retirement performance. I couldn't have imagined this life that I have now or have been living. And I still am not sure what else I'm going to do in my life, but it felt freeing to me that it's like, oh, there are things to look forward to. And it's not, this wasn't my only time to kind of prove myself. Yeah.
How did you balance photography with dancing?
It was, for a while, because I started in 2005, so there were about 4 years that I danced and photographed at the same time. And some of that, like, I wasn't photographing. Like, I would get lazy, I would get busy, um, or I would get frustrated just with everything and not want to do it. But when I did do it, I published that book, and then I had other opportunities to do other kinds of projects for New York City Ballet. I did this photography book, this photo booklet that was going to be handed out at this special gala performance, where they asked me to photograph the company in any way like I really wanted to. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we used the theater? No one had done that at that point. And so I decided, like, it was for this special gala performance called the Dancers Emergency Fund, which raised money for dancers in need, like if they were injured or things like that. And so I thought, well, what if I could use the theater, and what if I could use the dancers sort of propping up the theater? Like, they were almost part of the architecture in the way, like if they weren't there, like the theater would fall, kind of. And so yeah, I did this series of dancer architecture photos that really surprised me, and it didn't feel fake like I thought it would feel to pose dancers. I was happy with it, and people responded to that, and I think during those 4 years it allowed me to do both, and find clients outside the theater and build up that clientele, build up my own photo skills, and sort of wrap my head around how that was going to go if I was going to do that.
And how did you handle off days in the company or also with photography and days when you just don't want to do it?
Well, when I was dancing before I found photography, my off days were all about just getting a massage or acupuncture or something like that. It's all about kind of taking care of your body and trying to reset it in those 24 hours before you have to do it all again the next week. There's a lot of maintenance that was going into that. But also, I had kind of been unhappy in the company before I found photography. I kind of like I said, I felt creatively kind of bored, and I felt like I didn't have anything to look forward to. I wasn't going to get promoted, and it felt like I was just kind of doing the same thing every year. And it was just new dancers that were learning, you know, a new ballet or a ballet would go again, and it's like, okay, now they have to learn it all, and I've already done this. And it's, you find ways to like still become a better dancer. It's like, it's not like I was bored or anything. If anything, it taught me the skill to self-motivate and find other ways to inspire myself, just to keep my energy up and all those things. What was the question again? What was it?
How did you handle days when you don't want to do it?
Oh, yeah, it's hard. In the dressing room, we would play music. So I remember just playing. I don't know. For a while, we were listening to a lot of Broadway show tunes, and so it was like you find whatever kind of inspires you just to kind of get you going, and then you find ways to use that out on stage a little bit, and to allow that to kind of shade your performance or just give it a different kind of nuance. But it's hard if you don't want to do something. But I think as dancers, we're all like to work, especially when you get to a certain level. It's more, your body is tired and there's ways to get yourself just going, drinking coffee and all those things. But it's more the mental thing, like how can I keep going? That's the harder thing to kind of tackle, and that kind of follows you, for the rest of your life too. But knowing those skills as a dancer, like how can I inspire myself to do the job that I need to do? I still do that. You look for inspiration all around, and you kind of have to just be open to those things as an artist.
Mm-hmm. And what did your transition out of the company and into full-time photography look like?
That was like a really special time because I wasn't sure what was happening. I knew that I think I was 32, I think I was about 32. And when I first got into the company, I was like, oh, I'll have a job there until I'm 40. But the company changed a lot. Like lots of dancers left, and then more dancers left, and so it's like everyone kind of got younger really fast, and so I suddenly felt old after being there just like 4 years. And so that kind of shocked me. It was like I enjoyed my time, but I was like I wasn't expecting to feel that pressure so soon. So before I found photography, I would try to use the time to kind of train myself for possible segues, like into other jobs. So I started taking acting lessons on my day off. I started taking singing lessons. I started auditioning for Broadway shows, things like that. But when I found photography, I wasn't going to leave my job as a dancer in the New York City Ballet without another job, or at least like a real plan. But in 2009, there was a rumor that started going around New York City Ballet that the company was going to fire 10 dancers. And I thought, am I going to be one of them? Like, I knew that I was older, but I was, dancing well. I was dancing a lot. But you never know. You never know what to expect. And I thought, like, if I get fired at the end of my career, that'll be devastating to me. So I didn't think that would happen, but I wasn't sure that it wouldn't. And around that same time, Nikolai Huba, who used to be a principal dancer in New York City Ballet, was then artistic director of Royal Danish Ballet. And their company was putting on this balancing program of La Sonnambula, Symphony in C, and Symphony in 3 movements. And I had danced all those ballets, and he said, would you want to come here and photograph them for this special booklet that we hand out at the performances? It's going to be like a really fast turnaround. You're going to have to fly to Copenhagen and shoot like 3 run-through. It wasn't even that. It was like one or two run throughs of each ballet and then turn everything around so that they can make this photo booklet in like a day or something. So, but I thought, like, I really want to do that. But it happened to coincide with New York City Ballet's tour to the Kennedy Center in March. And I had been to the Kennedy Center a bunch of times, and I thought, like, I want to do this. And maybe this is the opportunity that I should just take, because, you know, it was kind of a perfect time to make that decision. I wasn't sure that I wasn't going to get fired or anything like that, but I decided to just jump, and I said yes. And I told Rosemary Dunleavy, who's the main ballet mistress at New York City Ballet, what my plans were, and then I told Peter, and so that meant that my last performance was just 2 weeks away, which was kind of like, at the time it felt thrilling. It's like, wow, like this is going to be it. And I kind of liked that I didn't have too much time to prepare. I had enough time to say goodbye to certain ballets and say goodbye to that whole life that I had. But it wasn't so much time that I could second guess myself. And my last performance was February 15th, 2009. And I did Stravinsky Violin Concerto, Balanchine Leotard Ballet, which I always loved, La Valse, and West Side Story Suite. So there was a nice kind of variety to the program. And doing West Side Story was always really fun for me. But it ends with all the dancers facing the audience and singing the last few bars of Somewhere, and sort of raising your arms and just kind of looking at the audience. And I hadn't really planned on what that was going to feel like. I knew, like, oh God, I'm going to have to sing at the end. And if I'm going to be, emotional, how am I going to do that? And I think, I was feeling those feelings, but also just incredibly happy at the same time. And I think I ended up just mouthing the words because I was afraid of just bawling. And there are a few seconds where, the dancers are just kind of looking at the audience and the music stops and you kind of hold that pose. And I just took it all in. Like, this was the last time I was going to be on that stage. And I just felt this overwhelming just gratitude for this life that I had and the 14 years that I had there. And then the curtain came down and I kind of burst into tears, but it was a celebration too. I was really grateful for that experience, and all the kind of negative feelings that I had been feeling just completely didn't matter anymore. And I kind of just felt very lucky and privileged to have, had that role. But I was also excited about this next venture and all that would entail.
Mm-hmm. And since you have such an extensive background in ballet, did you only want to photograph ballet and other forms of dance, or did you also photograph other things?
I started just dance and ballet because that was just, that was my specialty in a way. But I think as a New York City Ballet dancer, I got really spoiled with variety. Like, there's such a variety of choreography, and, it's not like you're a Broadway dancer where you're doing the same show every day. I kind of like jumping around on things, turning my attention to something else just to keep it fresh and not feel like I'm repeating something. It's the worst feeling for me, is to feel like I'm just wasting my time, I think. And so I was looking forward to shooting other things. And so I started shooting plays. I started shooting any kind of theater events. I started doing my own photography here. Like, in my studio, I would do fashion work, anything to kind of see, like, what's my voice in this and how would I shoot this? Like, I'm used to shooting motion, like maybe my fashion images could have like a lot of motion in it because and I could use dancers and see like how that mixed. And so I also realized that it's a business that I have, working for myself. I have to have a variety of strengths, not just shooting ballet. And so I would always take the opportunity to learn as much as I could, whether it was about lighting or whether it was about like learning how to shoot video and how to compile video. And just recently, in the last couple of years, I photo edited and designed a book, another book for the Balancing Foundation. And so that was another opportunity to find other ways to be kind of creative and to see what else I could kind of do. And it's really just to broaden my skills so that I could take on more kinds of work. And also, I mean, it's like being multilingual in a way. It's like you're able to express yourself a lot of different ways. And so I'm able to jump around from this program to this program to this program, all to like make something now that I don't have to wait for someone else to do. I'm kind of a one-man shop. And so I like all of that. I like that road that you kind of go on. And the older you get, the wiser you get about certain things. And so I'm enjoying that.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think about when you're taking photos?
It depends on what kind of photos. When you're shooting like performance photography, you're normally at the very back of the house, like in a viewing room or something. So it's all about focusing and making sure everyone's in focus and trying to keep an eye on what's happening on stage if you've never seen it before. But really following the movement. It's like I was a dancer. I can spot when someone's going to jump. Like I'm always like most like former dancers who are now photographers, like have really good timing. They can tell like what someone's about to do. And so there's a lot of technical things that I think about, like as I'm shooting, making sure the exposure is right. You're watching the lighting and seeing, how bright it is or whatever, and how well you're capturing. So there's that side of it, but you also want to capture like the essence of the work too. So you kind of have to keep an eye on like, what's the overall sort of feeling of this? It's less like an enjoyment of the performance. It's definitely like a job, but I do love when it's a ballet that I've done before, because I don't have to think about what I'm watching. I know exactly how to shoot it, but I also kind of find myself moving a little bit, even though I'm taking the pictures, and I feel like there's this weird exchange of energy from me, from the dancers to the audience to me to back to them. Like, I don't know, I feel this connection because I've been there, but also I'm still excited about it, I guess, and I'm still part of it because I'm doing my part of it, just not on stage.
What would you say is the most important aspect of a good photo?
That it means something, at least to the person who took the photo. It's like, I like it when it's not a snapshot where there's something kind of mysterious about it and you can look at it and it conveys like a story in a way. Maybe not, not literal, but that there's something that makes you look twice at it, and that it's not necessarily just like capturing pretty ballet pictures. Like it has to kind of, I like it when it's more than that. Even when I was first taking photos, like from the wings, I would like it when I could capture like the stage hands in the wings, and as well as the dancer on the stage. So you're seeing like not just this one thing, but you're seeing something broader at work. And when there's something that's intriguing about it that makes you look twice.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
I hope I'm alive and healthy, and my body's still going strong. Um, I hope to be working. I hope to be photographing, but also I'm moving more into film. I'm working on a documentary project, so I hope in 10 years that that's finally done because I'm excited about it. Um, and I hope I'm somehow still telling stories about the ballet world in my own way because there's a perspective that you get when you leave. There's this whole other life that you have. And I liked, since I've left, I reflect on that time constantly. It's not like I'm living in the past, but there's nothing really like that job and that experience. And it kind of burns into your brain. It changes you. And, most people are in their 20s when they're doing that and trying to figure out who they were or who they are. And there's a lot that you're kind of taking in that you can't even process at the time. So I reflect a lot about that time, regrets that I kind of have, or just like memories that I have that were just really wonderful. And but I also know that nothing's gonna compare to that time, and that's fine. Like there are glimpses. I still really enjoy shooting dance. I love getting that feeling in a photo shoot like I would get dancing, like that, when everyone jumped to their feet and started clapping, like I feel that when something's good, where I know like I'm on the right track or something. And where I have an idea, that's I get addicted to those those like sparks where I'm like, oh, that's good, and because it gives me like energy to kind of pursue that project. And I like doing projects that no one's ever done before, and because I think it's an interesting perspective that I have as a former dancer, having been through that world. It's almost like I hope my work is a commentary on that world still.
Mm-hmm. What advice would you give your 13-year-old self?
Oh gosh, I have a lot of advice. Let me think. That it's all going to be okay. That's a big one. Probably to love myself more. That's another big one. I think it's good to have a passion, and I guess if I not necessarily to myself, but giving advice to anybody else, like enjoy your passion, work really hard at it, be focused and give it your all, but also notice like other passions you have, other things that you're good at. Just notice them because, like, one day maybe that can be your next passion. And it doesn't have to be like, oh, it's ballet or I have to go to school or I have to be a ballet teacher. Like, there's so much in you that you could also be good at. I That's something I would tell myself. Like, you're not just a dancer. Um, you have a lot to look forward to, I think.
And where can people best find you and find out how to book a session?
That's great. They can always find me on Instagram and contact me through that. Um, yeah, one of the things I like doing around this time of year are student audition photographs. That's how I met you a few weeks ago. So that's I really enjoy that this time of year. Auditions are about to start, and ballet students really need good audition photos. And just having been a dancer in the New York City Ballet, I kind of have an expertise in getting people into good positions and taking a nice photo of it at the same time. But it's also my time to kind of experience dancers. I'm not like at the back of a house just shooting dancers. It's like I can talk to ballet students, like people, around your age who have that passion. And it excites me because it reminds me of what I was like at that age too. And yeah, and plus I get to see the future generation, which is really a joy. And yeah, so just contact me through Instagram, I would say.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was so amazing to talk to you.
Oh, you're the best. It was so fun talking to you too, Jasmine.